the rest of the night. What are you choosing for us today, Sister Susie from the pub?
Well, to celebrate the spring equinox today, I thought we'd go for a nice pink rosé wine.
Oh, okay.
Nice big glass of that. I quite like a Mirabeau from France, but, you know.
Half a pint, thank you very much. Drink responsibly, remember.
Exactly like that.
So tonight's confession comes from Freddie. Simon and the Collective Forgiveness crew. I don't think there's a certification issue on this one. This has been playing on my mind since confessions appeared on a radio station recently vacated by a Mr. Ken Bruce. But what a joy it is to find out that I can finally lift the burden of this particular misdemeanor. My confession goes back to the mid-90s, when I was a young, fresh-faced 20-year-old and living at home with my parents. My mother was friends with a very nice chap who could throw a bit of paint on a canvas and produce wonderful floral works of art. Worthy of the old-time greats, I think. None of this modern art rubbish, as Matt would think. One Christmas, it was a Christmas confession. One Christmas, my mother was gifted one of these elegant pieces by the kindly gentleman. She proudly hung it on the wall above the mantelpiece. One particular day, my mother went out and left me alone in the house. Well, nearly alone. We had a feisty Yorkshire Terrier with boundless amounts of energy. We're going to call him Rover, so we changed the name of the dog.
Of the dog, clearly.
Always helpful.
Yeah.
On leaving me with the bothersome hound, my mother left strict instructions that I should keep him entertained and tire him out. As a fresh-faced 20-year-old alone in the house, many things were on my mind, none of which involved entertaining the dog. Now, being the 90s, there was no internet or on-demand television to keep me interested. Instead, I thought I'd read the Financial Times and a few editions of the London Review of Books that were lying around. Whilst perusing these magazines on the sofa, I would throw Rover's ball through the living room and into the kitchen. Rover would happily retrieve the ball and yap incessantly till I threw it again and again and again. Rover's yapping was getting more and more urgent, and my interest and aim was wavering. In my frustration, I threw Rover's ball a little too hard, causing it to bounce and ricochet off the mantelpiece, narrowly missing the priceless tat that my mother had placed there. It did, however, dislodge the prized painting, sending it flying through the air, landing fairly and squarely on the fireside tool set. You know, the ones with the little shovel, brush and tongs that no one ever uses to poke a fire. My face fell as stupid Rover jumped onto the picture, tearing it even more. I wrestled the remains from his jaws and jumped into action. My dad had recently spent quite a lot of money on a fancy new PC, and more importantly, a very expensive colour printer and scanner. Knowing my mother would be out for some time, I raced to the local stationer's and bought some very fancy art paper. On my return, I pieced together the remnants of the painting and placed it on the all-important colour scanner. After some hasty retouching and blending on the PC, the final print was ready for reframing and placing back in pride of place above the fireplace. This is sounding like an ad.
This is amazing.
For Yellow Pages. And the original was confined to the bin outside, ready for the next day's collection. The best I could hope for in such a situation is that nothing would happen, and that everything would continue exactly as before, which is exactly what did happen. Nobody was, or indeed is, any the wiser to the forgery that hangs to this moment in the living room.
Wow.
Father Simon, many years have passed, and so has the original artist. His work now becoming rather sought after and valuable, as they so often do when an artist goes to meet his maker. Here's the thing. I don't beg forgiveness from my mother, who is none the wiser, and still enjoys the painting every bit as much as she did before. Let's face it, she could have another one printed for the kitchen if she wanted it. Neither do I beg forgiveness from my sister, who has also exhibited an interest in the picture and has been reliably informed that it will be passed to her in the event of the unthinkable.
Yeah.
I do, however, beg forgiveness from my nieces and nephews that may pass the family heirloom down through the generations, particularly should one of them take it to the Fiona Bruce of the day, only to be told it's worthless bubblejet print. I hope you like my confession, says Freddie. I feel better already. Well, I mean, it's quite a shocking art confession, really. Excuse me. I mean, deception, but everyone at the moment is quite happy because no one has had it valued yet. Sister Susie, please.
Yeah, I understand what Freddie's done here. However, he is right. people will be thinking that's worth a lot of money, and it won't be because it's something you did yourself. I think the issue is irresponsible dog ownership, because if you'd have taken Rover for a walk and, threw the ball on a walk and tied him out, then he would have come home, Rover would have fallen asleep, he could have read his books to his heart's content, and none of that would have happened. So if he'd have just looked after Rover a bit better, I don't think he would have needed any of this, and he still would have had the original. So for that reason, I'm not going to forgive him.
I'm thinking if Freddie's sister is listening, she knows immediately what we're talking about here. As absolutely no question. And she might have already financed. She might have thought, that's going to be worth a few.
Might have already spent the money in her head.
The artist has just died, so it's going to be worth a whole lot more money.
Yeah.
Ka-ching, thanks very much. Brother from another.
I mean, I'm going to forgive, if only just to be a fly on the wall when the sister does take it to the valuer and they go, this is a print, not the real thing.
Bubble
Unlucky.
jet.
Absolutely. But the reason I'm going to forgive is I want to know the name of this printer, because I'll tell you now, I mean, if this was printed in the 90s and it's on paper and still looks like the real thing, stuff that I print, within weeks, it's all faded. It looks like Dead Sea Scrolls. So, no, definitely forgiven.
I want to know who this gentleman was who was very friendly enough with the mother to actually say, here, have some free art.
Absolutely.
Anyways, the people's version.